Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. First and foremost, do not go looking for the Snyder cut of Army of the Dead. This is purely, unequivocally Zack Snyder's vision on the screen. His fingerprints are all over this. He's even a co-writer along with a trio of writers. He's a producer, he's a writer, he's the director, and he's even the cinematographer. It's a lot of Snyder in this movie. And you know what? Can I say something right now? I might grab the hot take plank over here. This is one of Zack Snyder's best movies. This is one of his best movies. Something about this guy and zombies go together like bread and butter. It shocked me, actually, first and foremost. I knew he did the Dawn of the Dead remake, obviously. I didn't realize that was his first movie. That was the first thing he directed. That was all the way back in 2004, even before 300. I don't know. I thought he had something before that, but no, Dawn of the Dead was his first movie that he directed back in 2004. He kind of returns to his zombie roots here. And I'll be the first to say there's a lot that I enjoyed about this movie. It's not without its flaws by any means, but it is really good. It's a spectacle, number one. And I kind of knew that this was going to be a different ride from the opening credits, which are so good at scene setting. And we open with a very violent head-on collision between two newlyweds and a military convoy transporting precious cargo, which is a zombie, as it's come to learn. It escapes, kills all the soldiers, and then flees into Las Vegas. And then the montage ensues of the zombies attacking Vegas. And you can, with how quick these zombies react, you could imagine it probably only took a couple days for Vegas to turn into a hellhole with how quickly these zombies can react. So it establishes the stakes very early on, kind of introduces us to the characters. And there's a lot of them here. I'm going to overlook quite the roster of characters here. But you have Dave Bautista, who I always said is a better actor than people give him credit for. He's the lead over here. You've got Omari Hardwick, who's very good as Vandero. Ana de la Guerra. You got Tig Notaro, who was CGI'd into this movie over Chris D'Elia after his shit hit the fan last year. And, you have a big roster of actors here that, almost too big, I would argue, of a cast. I'll go into that later to humanize. But this is a lot of fun. I think this movie, that's probably the best word I can use to describe it. And it's shot very well, too. I think Snyder, this is probably the best directed Snyder movie in a long, long time. We'll kind of go through opening arguments over here before we take our sponsored Zoom break, but I'll throw it over to Joe. What say you about Army of the Dead?
I watched all the interviews leading up to this because Zack Snyder's just been on my feed for YouTube, Facebook, everything since March with his damn Snyder Cut. So it's like I went into the Snyder Cut, all the interviews about that. It came out, all the interviews about it being out, and it's amazing, the greatest comic book film of all time. And then transition to, well, Army of the Dead is going to be the best zombie movie of all time because Zack Snyder said this. And honestly, I was way more excited for this movie than I ever was the Snyder Cut because I really love his Dawn of the Dead remake. I think it's a great remake. I think it's a really good movie. And when I watched interviews of it, he talks about how, yeah, you can go into this movie trying to dissect it and see what political messages there are there and everything else. Or you can go into it like how I filmed it, and I just want to go crazy and have a good time. And I'm going to tell you right now, I watched this with a group of friends. They hated this movie. They hated it.
Oh, man.
Everybody was just shitting on it the entire time, talk about how bad it is, all this other stuff. And here or there, I would jump in and be like, yeah, it's kind of stupid. But I had a lot of fun watching this because I knew to go into it expecting just like a good zombie action movie. And for the most part, that is what this movie is. It is a heist zombie movie, which in itself is a very unique thing. We don't really get too many of these. And it's got a large ensemble of characters that, for the most part, are pretty cool, but like they don't get enough screen time. I feel like enough of them. But there's enough there to at least make you go, oh, okay, his personality is this, that personality is that, and they're all cool and badass in their own way. Everybody, honestly, there were like three people. There's like an influencer, there's a nerdy guy, and then there's this like dude that tries to act like really bad. He's like Snyder's typical badass character. I thought those three dudes were gonna get on my nerves. They ended up actually being some of my favorite characters, especially the nerdy guy and the guy that's supposed to be a big badass. Let me get their actual names. Omari Hardwick, who plays Vanderho, and I'm gonna butcher this guy's last name, but Matthias Swayhofer.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck with that.
The German guy who plays Dieter, who's gonna get a prequel series.
Matthias Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Who plays the safe cracker? Who's like the most important member of the team, if you think about it.
Yeah, and like these two, they have so many scenes together, like halfway through the film, and their chemistry is so much fun. I enjoyed watching them like always like interact with one another. And honestly, all these people, I actually wanted them to get out. I would say, like, the criticism I do have of this film is that, yeah, it is too damn long. I don't know what the hell is with Snyder, but there are moments I'm just like, man, this could have been trimmed down, like, a ton here or there. I really like the first half of this movie where they are putting the team together. I think it's, a lot of fun. You're being introduced to people. And, like, as Steve was saying, Chris D'Elia, who got replaced by Tig Notaro, she's so good in this movie, and yeah, it's seamless.
She's one of my favorite characters out of this whole movie.
Yeah, like she has the best introduction where it's just like, how would you like to make like $7 million? 7 million? I'm in. Don't you want? Nope, I'm in. I know it involves.
If you go in not knowing that she was digitally replaced, you would have never guessed.
You would never guess. Yeah. I mean, like if you go in, when I went in knowing that, it's like I could see it, but it's very seamless. It wasn't obvious. But yeah, the only other complaint I have is that when we finally get into Vegas, the action is phenomenal. It's shot well, it's beautiful, but there is just one character that annoyed the hell out of me, man. And it's Dave Bautista's daughter, Ella Purnell, who plays Kate Ward. I don't hate the actress, but like this character is an idiot. Like everything you hate about horror movie cliche characters, she does it in this movie, and ultimately is the reason why like shit hits the fan by the end of this movie is because of her.
That's a fair point. Dom, you give your opening arguments. We'll come back after the sponsored Zoom break. But your general thoughts on Army of the Dead.
Let me just jump off of Joe's point, which is hey, in Ella Purnell's character's defense, every single one of these characters does something brain dead stupid at some point in this movie, which is actually, in my opinion, kind of a flaw of Zack Snyder's weakest aspect, something that has been consistent with a lot of his films. I think I've actually seen a bunch of them actually since the more recent, but which is his writing.
Yes. I was going to say the weakest thing about this movie is the writing.
As a writer, as as evidenced by the long running time, as the person who organizes things and all, and screenplay, right? All the important bits there. It's like you got to work on this, or like don't do it. I'm sorry. I heard a long time ago. It's like, yeah, I feel like I forget who this was. I think even just the internet. Where it's like, yeah, Zack Snyder should have just been a cinematographer. And you know what? I bounce back and forth with this because like. I look at Man of Steel sometimes like, yeah, these are amazing visuals, but it's so like empty and like barren in so many, at least in the Superman sense. I look at Wonder Woman 1984, which he produced, looking at his stuff here, but particularly with Watchmen, where it's like, okay, cool, he had something to base it off of, but even then it was not the most. It was it was a lot of flash, but not a whole lot of meat to it. A few minutes here. Let me just state before I go any further. Let me state my my opposing view to Dawn of the Dead remake. I'm weird, and not in this sense, but I do love the original 70s Dawn of the Dead, the OG. I think that is not just one of the greatest zombie movies, the greatest zombie movie of all time, but it is just one of my favorite horror movies and one of my favorite just movies in general. I love watching the first 30 minutes of that movie is so good. And then kind of what Zack Snyder turned it into with the Dawn of the Dead remake, I wasn't a big fan of, and I think I was like really mad at it when I was little, but now that I've come to terms with it, as I think Joe said, hey, he's just here to have a good time. So okay, cool. I can make peace with that, whatever. But a lot of things I saw with Dawn of the Dead was like, okay, this isn't really my bag. So coming to Army of the Dead, I'm like, okay, there's gonna be a lot of dumb action, comedy stuff here, a lot of badass shots, a lot of that kind of like a Michael Bay aspect to it. But I prefer Snyder over Bay. I just think there's more substance there, in my opinion.
Snyder most of the time doesn't try insulting your intelligence when
yeah,
making a movie.
Yeah, that's very true. But anyway, all that aside, yes, there is a lot of cool set pieces. That opening montage, I was like, damn, is he going like full zombie land with this thing?
That's what it felt like a little bit.
It did, and I'm like, okay,
with that like self-referential song that Viva Las Vegas cover.
Yeah, and in my opinion, I thought from there it started off really high and it kind of went on a downward slope, which we'll get into.